All right, so here we go. This is the last part of chapter 4. When we left off, Lily was just talking about how she didn't realize that colored people, as she says, could be so cultured. And so she's surprised at what she has seen through August, especially. And she tells Rosalind not to mess it up. So you can tell, especially in this last part of the chapter, how hard she is on Rosalind. She always is wishing that she was more polite or wishing she was more cultured instead of just kind of being happy with who she is. I mean, this is the woman that has helped raise her. Earlier in the book, she called her quote unquote stand in mother. So she's obviously done a lot for her, and yet she's still really hard on her. So think about sometimes how the people that you are closest to, you're almost the hardest on or the most critical of. So here we go. The next morning I woke early and walked outside. The rain had stopped and the sun glowed behind a bank of clouds. Pine wood stretched behind the honey house in every direction. I could make out about 14 beehives tucked under the trees in the distance, the tops of them postage stamps of white shine. The night before, during dinner, August had said she owned 28 acres left to her by her granddaddy. A girl could get lost on 28 acres in a little town like this. She could open a trap door and disappear. Light spilled through a crack in the red-rimmed cloud, and I walked toward it along a path that led from the honey house into the woods. So just a few things there. She could open a trap door and disappear. Is that literal language or figurative language? So literal is something that really can happen, and figurative is something that's an exaggeration or not quite real. So she's talking figuratively. She wouldn't literally open a trap door, but she figuratively could open a trap door and disappear. And then we've got the imagery of a red-rimmed cloud. Remember what that is when two words start with or two or more words start with the same sound? So red-rimmed, it's alliteration. I passed a child's wagon loaded with garden tools. It rested beside a plot growing tomatoes tied to wooden stakes with pieces of nylon hose. Mixed in with them were orange zinnias and lavender gladiolas that dipped toward the ground. Some more flowers. The sisters loved birds, I could see. There was a concrete bird bath and tons of feeders, hollowed-out gourds, and rows of big pine cones sitting everywhere, each one smeared with peanut butter. Where the grass gave way to the woods, I found a stone wall crudely cemented together, not even knee-high, but nearly 50 yards long. Crudely, that's a good vocab word to write down. What does it mean? Look it up if you don't know it. It curved on around the property and abruptly stopped. It didn't seem to have any purpose to it. Then I noticed tiny pieces of folded-up paper stuck in the crevices around the stones. Crevices, another vocab word, write it down. I walked the length of the fence, and it was the same all the way, hundreds of these bits of paper. I pulled one out and opened it, but the writing was too blurred from rain to make out. I dug out another one. Birmingham, September 15th, 4 little angels dead. I folded it and put it back, feeling like I'd done something wrong. Stepping over the wall, I moved into the trees, picking my way through little ferns with their blue-green feathers, careful not to tear the designs the spiders had worked so hard on all morning. What is that? The designs the spiders had worked so hard on? What is she trying not to ruin? The spider webs. It was like me and Rosalind really had discovered the lost Diamond City. As I walked, I began to hear the sound of running water. It's impossible to hear that sound and not go searching for the source. I pushed deeper into the woods. The growth turned thick and stickier bushes snagged my legs, but I found it. A little river, not much bigger than the creek Rosalind and I had bathed in. I watched the currents meander, the lazy ripples that once in a while broke along the surface. Meander, another good vocab word. Write that one down and look it up if you don't know what it means. Taking off my shoes, I waded in. The bottom turned mushy, squishing up through my toes. A turtle plopped off a rock into the water right in front of me, nearly scaring the Lord Jesus out of me. There was no telling what other invisible creatures I was out here socializing with. Snakes, frogs, fish, a whole river world of biting bugs, and I could have cared less. When I put on my shoes and headed back, the light poured down in shafts, and I wanted it always to be like this. No T-Ray, no Mr. Gaston, nobody wanting to beat Rosalind senseless. Just the rain-cleaned woods and the rising light. So that is the end of chapter 4. Be prepared for a reading check tomorrow on chapter 4, and you do have a journal on chapter 4 to do today. So that's it for today.